You are now in the realm of enlightenment and transformation.
Welcome to Chief Speaks.
All music performed and produced by Yu Yang.
Enlightenment and transformation. Enlightenment comes from allowing yourself to journey through the dark shadows of death, the primordial abyss of wisdom's waters. For it is the treasures and mysteries that lie wait in the dark actualized creation. Knowledge is your light as wisdom is your darkness. The bold interplay of the two in your life leads you to an enlightened understanding of yourself and the universe you've created. Male is your enlightenment. Female is your transformation. Child is your evolution. Woman, accept the light into your darkness so it may enlighten you. Man, bring your light boldly into the darkness so that it may transform you.
Seriously, man, it's like I'm waking up. The last 3 days I'm waking up and seeing things that represent that, images.
I love you so much because you just don't know what you've just done for me. Thank you so much.
Wow. This is like the best call I've had in ages on BTR.
So this show was meant for me to be able to hear today, and I'm so thankful.
That's his home.
Therefore, now a new pathway has now been cut in order to get to the Almighty, where there may not have been one. So the communication with them, if they have enough power and strength to talk to us, the communication will be very related.
That's one of the reasons I don't get into the encouragement thing too much, because it starts to become a perpetual alarm clock that we just keep hitting snooze on. I speak to the ascended masters.
Hey, just so you guys know, I have
stuff, but I also speak about some very practical we can do today things.
Be as natural as you can be. You can't always go by your feelings, because your feelings are corrupted. Your feelings are corrupted. Everything else. You got really wrap it up. You got to know what's beyond you, and that's why we have elders. You can't do everything. You can't get everything out of books or a weekend certification. You can have the most powerful, ancient, oldest, as far as you know, truthful tradition in your hand.
You must have
like you still have a dirty spirit.
My
you're not going to get anything
my phone.
You're not going to learn anything. You're not actually going to grow. I try to teach in a way where
that's
I
it.
myself
Unplug it, man.
That's always been my goal, to make myself obsolete.
I really wanted to, kind of big you up. I think you're awesome.
There's a lot of elders out here right now that want to know what's going on. They're not getting on Twitter. They want to be up on the new stuff. Sit down and have some conversations with them. It's not always about hearing their story. It's also about being news reporters for them and letting them know, like, yeah, this is what's happening right now. They may tell you something about what happened in Charleston that you couldn't. Your spirituality has to create.
Oh wait, we can be heard right now.
Okay, and that family exists first inside of you. You have to express the different expressions of that rainbow coalition of spirits inside of you first.
Oh man!
Don't let communities hijack that rainbow. The problem is when we come into the conscious community, the dudes are doing the same thing that the women are doing.
I just want to say that I really enjoy your show every Sunday, and my friend and I call it going to church. When we call in, we'll be like, you going to church? And I'm like, where have y'all been at?
God cannot go against its own truth. So anytime you have an inkling that God is going against its own truth, then God is no longer behaving as God. So therefore the spiritual community
it's still playing on my computer.
God. You dig where I'm coming from? Or can we have a new thought? Can we step outside the book for
on the chat room
and have a new conversation about hair weaves and wigs? Can we have a new conversation about homosexuality? Can we have a new conversation about vegan eating? It's a good day for an exercise.
Anytime you're ready, fellas.
All right, greetings, everybody, and welcome to Chief Speaks, Student Edition. Shouts out to Chief. I could have swore we was on mute, but we weren't. We could be heard, so
It's a beautiful thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get some of that background noise. Good day, y'all. Greetings. Hopefully the strong has treated you guys well. Been progressive, productive, loving, and growth has been involved into it. And hopefully the next strong goes the same way. How y'all folks doing?
There we go. We got Brother Charles on the line. We got Brother Anwar on the line. And we are, we'll just build until you call into the line. Shouts out to everybody that is in the chat room who heard us. Yeah, man, this is a beautiful. We're going to have a good day today, y'all. I'm telling you. Brother Charles, what's going on, man? How you feeling?
Man, it's August. It's, for those in the conscious community, it's Black August, the celebration of so many critical events that have happened in the lives of African people. The birthday of Marcus Garvey is in August. The start of what is called Nat Turner's Rebellion happened in August. George Jackson's escape from prison, August. So, August is an important month for us. And it's funny because I was thinking how, the month of August, and so in the Yoruba language, August is called Ogun, right? And, Ogun is that analytical and warlike force. And it's interesting that, in the month of August is usually when you see these things where, African people take this very militant stance in terms of our actions. And here we are talking about mating, and I remember reading, it might have been, I'm going to attribute it to Che Guevara, but I might be wrong, but basically a statement to the effect of, at the heart of any revolutionary is love. And it's love that makes you take a revolutionary action. And so now here we are today talking about mating. And it reminds me of this other thing that I once heard that said, even to love blackness is a revolutionary act, right? And for us, loving blackness and learning how to love each other is a revolutionary act. So I say all that to say is it's just so appropriate that here we are talking about mating during this month and this time because, it's our love for each other that really is going to cause the revolution that we want to see. So, I'm here. I'm glad to be here with y'all. Shout outs to all those in the chat room with the jokes. Shout outs to not letting us know when we're on for the outtakes. Appreciate that too as well. And let's have a good show, man. And definitely in the chat room, mating and relationships is one thing that everybody believes that they're expert on. So there should be a lot of traffic and a lot of interesting conversation and back and forth. So me and Brother Zach and Brother Anwar, we were saying that we think this is going to be a really tight show. And it is because we're going to get that level of participation that we always talk about getting, but we're going to get that today. So I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and just as a reminder, any of the students that want to join, if you want to join the call, call the conference line that we have, put in the code and just join the call. Okay? If any of the students have a question on how to do that, just let me know in the chat room and I'll get that situated.
So since and it's just since we're going to talk about it, man. I think we're going to talk about it today. So this is we just like Brother Charles said, we're going to express our ideas and concepts on this thing called love, man. And when we come together, what is it? And I find that so many people use the word, and then when you actually ask what the word is, or what do you mean by that? And then you get these blank stares, or you get this. I mean, it's like when you care for somebody, or I've gotten even this one. It's when you punch somebody in the face for somebody else. That's when you love. That's when you know you love somebody. And I'm like, well, why would you use the word if you don't know what the word means? And how many people come together and say, this relationship is based on love? And if it was, then why did so many relationships fail? And I started to look at it, then I'm like, okay, well, when one comes into it with another person, relationship, ideal, then I already know that this is going to work out, and this is going to blossom into something great, into something beautiful, which he was breaking down on the other stuff, sulfur and mercury aspect, which is that salt, then that salt comes into the pillar. So once you try to just sit there and change the other person and you take on a project, then it's like you don't want to do any work for your actual self. And that's what the whole enlightenment and transformation is. No, you have to first do work on yourself in order to start to join in with, and you can now have a proper mate when you start to know who and what you are. Then you can build in and y'all can dissolve yourselves into this aspect of love. And then you start to see that love is not something that you look for. Love is something that you actually allow. But when you start to go look for it, then when you start to look in other people, you start to see what can I get instead of what can I give. And when you start to change your whole language and say, what can I give to this person? It's going to cause you to actually see them and see what.
All right, your brothers are back. You're back on.
All right, so just to check, can we be heard in the chat room? If you could just send the smoke signal, let us know before Brother Anwar. Okay, we're back in the chat. All right, Brother Anwar.
Yeah,
thank you, Brother Lowe.
We're back on. Okay, cool. Now, going back to the train of thought. Okay, so the thing is that going back to what I was saying is that knowing yourself inside of the whole mating situation is important, because you got to really define yourself and define your needs as a person, as your own evolution and your own life purpose, and alongside of knowing what kind of partner is going to be able to fit in that and fit in that space. Because you really don't want to have two opposite people, one being, let's say, somebody that's consistently worried about, for example, going out and being an entrepreneur. For my example, like if I'm an entrepreneur, I know I'm gonna have to dedicate a lot of my time into moving into the businesses, focusing on making sure the businesses are right. So I personally need a mate that understands that process, understands that a lot of my time is be spent on building my enterprise, where it's not going to be every day that I might have to be with you. You know what I'm saying? I might have to take a week off just so I can handle my business and come see you on Saturday or on one particular day. So it's knowing your needs as a man, especially as a man, because that's what we're supposed to be doing, is creating the umbrella for the family unit. And I think that was one of the things that really stuck out to me this month, is making sure that you know what you're getting into and you know what you need inside of your life purpose and growth.
Yeah, I mean, so I would just say that, like, so here's the thing, is that the mating process is not something that people are taught how to do effectively, right? So what happens is a lot of times we move into our relationships based on this idea of love, right? Which, is something that we experience as an emotion, but it's also something that it does not permanently remain the same way. But a lot of times our mating situations, and I'm talking about like if you go into a marriage, is presumed to be a permanent situation. So there's actually, I think, a lot of logic that goes into the mating process, that people do not approach it with. And so what happens is, like, the situation, it's not like something that Brother Zach said. It's not that people change. It's that people they grow. They grow into who they are. They grow more into who they are. And the problem is that sometimes we get into relationships thinking that the person is going to change into something different, and they're not. Because especially as you get older, you become more and more locked into the kind of person that you are. And so, I think that when we approach relationships, we have to really ask ourselves, what am I in this relationship for? And how does this relationship move forward my personal mission? And I think the relationships that work the best is when your mission and the mission of your complement are in alignment with each other. Because then there's not you trying to sell the person on their thing, them trying to sell you on your thing, and this back and forth kind of dynamic that happens. Because at the end of the day, it's like, I remember something that my mom used to tell me that I didn't really believe until I got older. And her thing was basically like, there's no real point in getting married unless you're going to have children. Because the point of marriage, the point of all that, is to have children and to build families. That my mom, I remember, when I was younger, I didn't really believe until I got older. And her thing was basically like, there's no real point in getting married. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry, I got a little thrown off there by hearing myself. But the point I'm trying to say is that the point of these mating relationships is to build family. Just like your spirituality, like they say in the intro, is to create sane spiritual families. Like, that is the point of all this. So we have to really be very, very careful about how we enter into these things, and we have to move into them from a sense of conscious creation, not unconscious creation, not, oh, such and such is cute, or, oh, they got a big this or that, or, like all this kind of stuff, but really think about what we're trying to build, because the family is what's important. And you build, like you not thinking consciously about the family you're going to build is going to end up with, a Franken family type situation that ends up being a detriment not only to you, but also to the community.
Mm-hmm. Man, and as I was just sitting here, one of the things that just popped into my head was just, even when people come in and you just said you're looking at it, like, how important really is sex in a relationship? Is it really that important, or is it something that should be in one's top three, or like of things that when people enter into a relationship, or is it something that shouldn't even be in there at all?
I think sex in the relationship is an important factor into it too, because if you're not having, he's not using the word lightly. I'm gonna give you some definitions on good and bad as we get later on inside of the conversation. But having good sex also deals with good creation. Okay, because if we're both engaged in a sexual act and we're both consciously creating, whether it's a child or whether it's just our intent of building our structure in our family, it's important to have that in there. And that's got to be one of the strongest things, because most of our magic comes from that. So, the interplay between the male and the female. So it's I think that's one of the, like you said, top three things. But also at the same time, it's the agreement that's being made. The man's going to be expansive, and like what Chief was saying, Chief was breaking down, was that the male is not going to change. The only thing that you might see as change would be his expansive nature. He's going to expand his nature of where you met him at. If he's doing what men are supposed to do, as go forth and initiate land and initiate possibilities to make his umbrella cover the family, that's the only change you can see in a man. You know what I'm saying? And that's not really change. It's just expanding his intent, expanding his process of where he wants to see his family, his wife, his family, his children, his everyone that's covered underneath that umbrella. So that's another thing, you know.
So then, if I could ask you a follow-up question, Brother Omar. So then, are you saying that sex is important as in relationship to procreating, or is sex important as in having good sex?
Both. Having good sex is also the ability to focus one's energy in a certain direction. And I'm pretty sure if everyone's experienced it after sex, a good night of sex, you're focused on whatever you have to do the next day. You're able to move a little bit more, function a little bit more without having any kind of other undertones affecting your process. You're able to concentrate more. You know, out of a man's point of view, for me, that's how it is. You know, good night of sex, I'm focused. I'm ready to do what go conquer the world again. You know what I'm saying? So I would love to hear a woman's point of view on that too, because once again, women take in that light while we're in that process. So if the woman's taking in the light that we're focused on, we're cleared up, and they're taking in the light that we're projecting outward, and the woman takes that and is able to get inside of get with the program of the family and how we're running the family within that. That's beautiful. I feel, like I said, it's important in both sides. Definitely important in procreation, and definitely important in the actual just balancing act of your mental process through the week, through the time.
So what I would agree with, I'd agree with both of you on that. I mean, look, it's like, you know, there's no question that sex is an important part of a relationship, right? And it's like, you know, it's said that, you know, the three most important things in the relationship are the sex, the finances, and the children. And when one of those things breaks down, the relationship breaks down, right? But the thing is, like, it's like while sex is a very important part of the relationship, its priority at different times in the relationship could be different. So it's like if you're listening to music and you have like bass, treble, and volume, right? The bass, treble, and volume can't always be at the same level at the same time. You know, in order for the sound quality to be good, sometimes your bass is up, the treble's down, the volume might be at a certain level. That's to hear one sort of song. If you're going to play a different song, you might have to adjust that a different way. If you're in a relationship long enough, the tone of your relationship is going to change at different points. You know what I'm saying? So you might go through that first, you know, like when you first get with somebody, you know, y'all can't even have a conversation until you've gotten down 2 or 3 or 4 times. But then at a different stage in the relationship, you know, you come home and it's like you're having conversations now about what's going on, about what you're planning to do next, about what do you two want to do. And so at that point, there's something else that becomes a little bit more important. You know, when you're in a relationship and you have children, you know, that has a huge impact on what becomes the most important thing in the relationship. It's not to say that the sex is not important, because it's still one of those 3 important factors. But at different times in the relationship, different things are going to be most important. There's times when the finances become most important. You know what I'm saying? If somebody gets laid off, then the finances become the most important thing. And that will jack with how the kids get treated. And sometimes it'll jack with the sex life as well. But the thing is that, like, while it's important, it also has to be calibrated properly into the relationship. Because the other part of it is that I'm sure, like, people have experienced relationships that are just totally focused on sex. And the sex part is great, but the rest of it is a nightmare. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing going on good but that one thing. And those relationships are not fulfilling. Usually they're not fulfilling in the long term, whatever your long term threshold for that is. So, you know, like I would say to your question, yes, absolutely, it is a vitally important thing. But the calibration of how vital and how it prioritizes at different stages in the relationship is what you're really adjusting based on what's going on.
So, I'm gonna say this. I respectfully disagree. I don't think that it should be that important, especially when you first meet somebody. Like, if you remove sex from the equation, you start to see what you really got. You see who's really standing in front of you. But when you implement it in a relationship, then all of a sudden you start to get drowned past what somebody really is presenting and standing in front of you. So before one, and I think you said, Brother Anwar, the light, before one should receive any kind of light from the male phallus, you first need to see what kind of light is projecting from the crown chakra. And if it's not coming from there, then there's no sex that's going to be, no good, quote unquote, sex is going to evolve from that anyway. So if when one is looking in the top three, I don't think it should be in your top three. Because if it's in your top three, then now it's like, well, what are you really entering into this relationship for in the first place?
Now that kind of goes with what Chief just said in the chat room. He said sex is one of the most dangerous things in a relationship, and I think this is where the problem is. This is my opinion on this: is that sex in this society, in Westernized society, is it's pornographic. It's literally at a point, sex is just something to get a nut. And if you're in a relationship where it's just to get a nut, that's not right. That's not going to work. That's really not going to work because you're not focusing on the growth. You're not focusing on the expansion. You're not focusing on the umbrella. But if you're in a relationship where these things are the focus, these are like the core central of your relationship to build a strong family, then sex plays as a good key to open the doors for a lot of things that's happening. Now, once again, it goes into a lot of things, and honesty being one of them. Being able to communicate clearly with your partner and tell your partner, like, this is what I want, this is what I need. You feel me? And be into that space where it's able to take in those needs and those wants and be able to develop them inside the relationship. The biggest issue I see is that most people, they take sex as the only thing that's supposed to be in a relationship. And then they kind of just go about their business and separate from it. Now, if you're, and once again, it's called knowing exactly what you want after a relationship. You need to know what you want. If you're just there for sex, make sure your partner knows that this is only for sex. If you want to date multiple women, make sure that your mate knows that you're dating multiple women. You know what I'm saying? If you can't sit there in their face and tell them that this is what I want and this is what I need in my life, and they agree with it, and then they go with the consent of it, then yes. But if not, you can't do that. That's wrong. That's just dirty. You do people dirty that way. And that's where that dirty sex comes in. That's when that bad sex comes in. Let me before, because I'm gonna use the word bad and good throughout the show, and I just want to give you some definitions and disclaimers on that. I want to be real clear with it. When I say good means focus on the way I want to hold my culture in my household. The way I see my culture in my household, that would be good light. Good light. Now, anything opposite to my culture in my house would be bad light or lesser light. It's stuff light that does not affect my household. Okay? So I wanted to be real clear when I use those words, because the words good and bad, you know, we all understand there's no real truth behind good and bad. One's personal truth of what bad is could be someone's opposite truth to what bad is, and so forth, so on with good. So
I like to add, fellas. I like to add on to the conversation. I think I think a big reason why.
You got to tell people who you are, brother. There we go.
All right. Peace to the family. Peace to everybody out there. Hope y'all having a beautiful day. The sex, in my humble opinion, I think the reason why it becomes so important in the relationship, and the reason why it's a big barrier in this Western, a lot of Western relationships and people trying to come together is because, I mean, like the brother said, a lot of us got like a pornographic mind state when we get to thinking about sex. You know what I'm saying? Like when we hear sex, you know, we instantly go to, you know, stick the blank in the blank. You know, that's sex. But when I think about sex, I'm thinking about, you know, two counterparts coming together and making one. You know, I'm thinking of a push and a pull. You know, I'm thinking of two actually coming together and making a good match or being a good mate for whatever that purpose is. I think sex has to be looked at from a healthy mind state as that, instead of just looking at it from the physical, because the physical is only an after effect from what happens person, the spiritual and the mental. You know, that comes last when we're talking about sex. So I think about a coming together of this enlightenment and transformation, you know, a linking, a joining, you know, a religion, you know. So that's how I think about sex. I think that's how we should look more at the sex, and the two coming together as one for sex for a purpose, you know.
Mm-hmm. Chief just said something in the chat room real quick, and I'll just read it out real quick. He's talking to Brother Charles. He said, if you are not a communally confirmed man/woman or woman, I can guarantee you're not even ready to have sex. If you cannot define what a man is intelligently or what a woman is, you should not be having sex. If you think sex is only for a release or to manifest what you want, you should not be having it. It's like putting a magic wand in the hands of an imbalanced individual, and then the black magic wand with white tip is a symbol of the African male's phallus. And that's true on that too, is that, you know, you have to define yourself. You know, what kind of man are you? What kind of woman are you? What is a man? What is a woman? What are the distinct roles that we play in our sphere? So knowing those basics, first just the basics of what a man and what a woman is, that's one thing. And then knowing how you define yourself as a man and as a woman is the second thing. And that goes into a lot of, once again, going into a lot of self-work and making sure that the community is helping you move, especially as a younger male. It's better when you have the elder males being able to sit there and put those men through their manhood initiations as they grow. You know, Chief People broke down is that the manhood training doesn't stop. You know, it doesn't stop. It really literally starts from a young child all the way out to 65, and they continue to grow. Now, if you have balanced men and elders in that society, being able to put those men through initiations, and the same thing with the women. There's balanced elder women that can put the women through those initiations of growth. That's when the balanced perspective happens. It's good sex, not bad sex. Bad sex will mess you up.
Right, and I guess well, before Charles, do you want to add anything?
Well, I mean, I would just say that what Brother Anwar is talking about is the utopic example, right? So obviously, it would be great if our definitions of what it is to be a man and woman were guided by the elders of our communities. And I guess in a backward sort of way, it is still happening that way. But I'll tell you that I don't think it's happening in the correct way. And so I think a lot of times, you know, what qualifies someone as a man or woman is just their ability to have sex. You know, I mean, that is like once you, like, you know, I grew up at a time when, you know, the rite of passage, if you will, to becoming a man was like the first time you had sex. And like, that was it. You know, there wasn't all those other steps before then. And so, you know, I think for a lot of us, you know, we grow up with a lot of trial and error and a lot of mistakes, you know, sometimes mistakes that stay with us for the rest of our lives that we have to figure out, you know, to try to then redefine what it is to be a man and then how that means to operate in society. So, you know, I think it would be great if, you know, that is what we had, and if the proper individuals were in place and established in place to help guide the younger men and women through that process. But a lot of times that's just not where it is. And I think, you know, the other part with the sex part, and I think, you know, Brother Anwar and Brother Jeremiah were talking about it, is that, you know, while sex can definitely be a beautiful thing and a creative thing, it can also be a very distracting thing and a very draining thing. So, you know, it's some people that are just, they're using sex as their way to kind of just skate through and avoid dealing with life. You know, there's some people that are using sex as a way to keep themselves constantly drained, constantly not able to produce. You know, there is, like, for men, obviously when we're having sex, you know, it's a draining experience for us. You know, if you're doing that over and over and over again, you know, there's a certain energy that you're losing that can be applied to doing other things as well. So, you know, there is that component of it too. And I think that's where the tricky thing about the pornography comes in, because what pornography is teaching you is the sex just for the purpose of reaching a climax without any real thing beyond just that. And that can be dangerous because that's the unconscious creation. You know, there's no intention behind it except getting to the moment. You know, so there's not going to be anything productive or intentionally productive that comes out of that. So, you know, that's the issue and that's a challenge. And obviously we live in a society that's turned pornography into, you know, probably a multi-billion, $100 billion industry. So that says a lot about where the society is and where people's engagement, understanding of sex really is.
Is that really then just going off of two primal needs that everybody would have when they come down here? The one is the need for survival, and the other one is to procreate. Is that speaking to that and playing on that? And then is that some things that people start to have issues with as well, as not knowing how men see things and how women see things? Whereas, again, going back to what I said earlier, is just instead of going into a relationship saying what can I get from it, changing that and seeing what can I give. Because when I say men see or even speak or something, automatically I would be safe to assume that he wants sex. Like, why? I don't understand why people have a hard time with saying that. Even if a guy says something, like if he speaks to you, if he opens your door, something like that, it might be safe to assume that he wants to hit that. Would I be off in that?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, that's
okay.
Every behavior of a man is not based on trying to have sex with a woman. It's not. Like, I don't believe that, and I can say that. Yeah, no, I mean, I think there is a place in which that is happening, but you know, that's not every action is not based on that. And you know, I think, you know, with the man and woman part of that, which is, I think, the critical part of this, you know, men, you know, it's our job as men to help and understand men, right? And it's the woman's job to help and understand women. We're not here to try to, you know, critique or try to tell women how to be or act. I've never been one. You know, I can tell you about being a man because I am one. You know, I know what it's like to have been a boy, and I know what it's like to have been a teenager and that thing. So it's our responsibility to do that and to guide that. And it's also our responsibility as men to show girls and women how men are supposed to treat and deal with you, so that when you're not present, there's still a standard that's in place. You know, I know, like, for me as a man who has a daughter, you know, like I'm constantly aware of like how every way that I treat her is a possible preclude to how a man is going to treat her, you know, 20 years from now. And so I want to make sure that, like, she sees my behavior with her and she sees my behavior with her mother as, you know, as being, as, you know, in parentheses, as righteous as possible, because I'm trying to guide that expectation for her in terms of how a man should be with her. You know, like I always remember that, and this is a little bit of a sidebar, but it kind of gets back to what we were saying. I always remember that on my wedding day, my wife's father came to me like during the reception, and he shook my hand and he said, "She's your responsibility now." And ironically enough, a month after that wedding day, he transitioned. And I always go back to that because, you know, he was like, he's her father. He was in his 70s, you know, obviously she was an adult at that point. I'm sure in her mind, she did not have, her father was not still responsible for her. But the fact that he still viewed it that way and that he was transitioning that responsibility to me was an important thing, because obviously in the life of any woman, the role that her father plays and the role that her husband plays are very unique and specific roles, which have some overlap, but are not exactly the same thing. So, you know, like as men, like how we interact with women is important because we're also transitioning to them, like this idea of who's going to be responsible for them down the line and the type of man that should be responsible for them. So like if I open the car door for my wife or I open the door for anyone else, you know, a woman, like I want my daughter to see that, not like from the gentlemanly kind of part, not so much that, but from this idea that, you know, the man, first of all, for me to open the door for you, I got to be standing in front of you anyway. So there's a lesson on that. But then the other part is that this idea of the man's role in being the first one through, the first one there, the first one to see what's going on, to make it safe for you, to say it's okay for you to go in here and to look out for you, because that's what I know, that's what I want my daughter to have when she gets older.
Mm-hmm. That's important too. That goes with what Chief just said. It's draining for a man when he's not learned to tame the dragons. Woman. A woman will gather your energy because she is sexually more powerful than you initially. This is part of manhood training. And this goes into, like, you know, I'm 39 now. It took me a while to learn this and that. Look, you have to be able to direct your intent towards that woman, so she knows that this is your solid nature. This is the unchanging aspect of you, that when you move forward inside of any community, any social area, she knows that there's a statement that's being made by the code that you live by and by the culture that you live by. She knows that when you're moving forward, she's not worried, thinking that she's just going to go talk to every woman, but she knows that you have a process. If there has to be another woman inside of the family, there's the conversation, there's the knowing, there's the acknowledgement of both parties to sit there and say, okay, this is what it is. This is where we're going to. So, you know, taming that dragon is important, and learning how to use, not just to use the dragon, but how to grow with the dragon is important.
So let me. So then I just want to make sure I'm clear. So when y'all met your significant others, the first thing that went through your head was, I want to be responsible for somebody else and look after them, and it didn't pass or go through your mind saying that I would hit that.
No, I disagree with that. I disagree with that, because that initial attraction is where the magic happens. So that initial attraction is what makes you want to talk to that woman. You feel me? And if that after that first conversation, you're gonna know. Most people know as soon as you see somebody. It's like, okay, I would sleep with that person, because they see something. For someone that's enlightened, they see something greater inside of somebody until something has changed, some kind of parameter has changed inside of the conversation. Because I've spoken to girls, and the girls, I'll speak with them for like 5-10 minutes and be like, you completely ditzy, or something that just throws it off. That's like, nah, I can't, I just couldn't do that, because I know when I'm sharing my light, it's good light. So I don't want to just corrupt that into a bad succubus or a bad black hole that's just going to take that light and run with it instead of being able to build something from there. Now, is it in my mind where when I see somebody, the first thing I'm thinking is procreation or culture building or nation building? No, I don't. Since we're talking about women, one thing, and building a family within that. But even with other men, when you sit there and talk about like nation building, there's only a few men that you want to go build a nation with. Because some of these motherfuckers, some of these, excuse my language, some of these dudes are worth the shoes that they're in. You feel me? So it's certain things like you get into those relationships and those conversations with people, and you're like, okay, I can run with you, or I can't, or you don't fit inside of this umbrella that I made. And you can just be on the sideline, but I'm pushing forward because if you come inside this umbrella, you can damage my umbrella. And that's where the defensive nature of the man needs to come in. Just like our brother Charles said, walk through the door and make sure that it's okay for the woman to be safe going inside of the environment you're going into. It's important. I've been stressing that for the last couple of weeks is defense. Defense, just generally speaking. I think that's one of the main roles as men that we need to play in our community, in our nation. So,
well, Zach, let me just say this to that question. Yes, of course, there's always a physical component that's in attraction, right? But I think, and Chief hit on this in one of the earlier shows, and it's a true thing. What builds attraction from between one person and another is based on like 10 variables you can see and about 1,000 that you can't. That has to do with like your upbringing, your background, your family, your igun, your spiritual nature, like all those things that you can't tangibly focus on. And then the things that you actually like, a lot of which is being programmed by the society anyway, and how that either matches up or doesn't match up with somebody else. You know what I mean? So it's like, yes, of course, there's always going to be that like the most base desire of, wow, this person is, like gorgeous. And so I want to be intimate with them. But I think what changes the contours of the relationship are those connections on all those other deeper levels. And when you make that decision to obviously join yourself with someone forever, then that's when you're thinking about the mission and the family and what kind of lifestyle you're going to have. And, is this person a person that's actually going to be able to raise a child? Is this person a person that's actually going to be able to, do the things that are going to be necessary to create the optimal environment for a child if I'm not around? So that's the other part about it too. When you're, you get with somebody and something may happen to you. Now, are your children in the care of a person that is actually going to take care of your children and raise them in accordance with how you would want them to be? Are your missions that much in alignment? So it becomes like a very specific kind of process, but it's a graduated process. And the reality is, and I mean, we all see this in our relationships, is everybody doesn't get to that level. Everybody doesn't get to that part of the interview process, so to speak. Some people, you figure out what you want from them. They want the same thing, and that's where it is. But I think when you talk about like the responsibility part, and you talk about the building the family part, that part is a much more elevated process. And I think that's where if you're properly in tune, that is where like your real thoughts, your real feelings, your real aspirations, your spirituality, all these things start to connect in a different way.
So then with that being said, how do you feel then about arranged relationships, or arranged finding a mate and having somebody being covered and saying, okay, this would be a good fit for you as opposed to this one? And do you think people can break that down for themselves?
In terms of like people having arranged marriages, that's what you're asking about?
Correct.
I love it. I love that as an idea. I love that. I think that's a fantastic idea, and that people should bring that back 100%. Most people they're not adept enough to make a decision on who to be with. They don't have enough information. They don't have enough experience, and they're entering into the situations for the complete wrong reasons. And in a more cohesive community, you would have to go and have your decisions on who to mate with verified through those elders anyway. And they would have the power and the authority to say to you, yeah, you can be with, Shaniqua, or no, you can't be with Karen. That's kind of like how it is. You absolutely, we need that 1,000%. I mean, you can look at the state of families and see that, most of us are not very good at picking mates. That's pretty obvious, There's all types of anecdotal and statistical data to present that. You know, I think the other thing too is that, you know, there are cultural parts to this as well, because, you know, we try to fit the idea of like our ideas of, you know, African spiritual and cultural unions into a marriage system that's not really specifically designed for us in the first place. But at the same time, because of lack of understanding and awareness of our own cultural traditions as it relates to marriage, we resent and resist those also. So the process of like trying to go back now and say to people, okay, you know, your grandparents or your parents are going to pick who you're going to be with, you know, people would reject that. But they would reject that from the standpoint of a society that has created so much this idea of hyper individualism, which reinforces the idea that you are the center of all things and know all things, can do all things, that you would resist that kind of advice and that kind of direction that would actually be in your best interest. You know, so it would be it's a hard thing to do, but I'm all for it. I think that would make great sense and would probably present and create more longer lasting marriages and better, stronger families.
I work in a apartment complex doing security, and the apartment complex has a high population of Indian families, and most of those families are prearranged marriages, right? But one thing that I rarely see is a single Indian woman walking in with with a whole bunch of children. I mainly see the men and the children come inside the facility, and they're doing things as a community. Like there's been times I walk in and there's like 50 Indian people having a powwow inside of one of the facilities. So it's the community and how the community is built that shows a lot of structure. And I think there's also like some negations to it, because there's some of the men are questionable in their own intent. So there's certain things inside of that community that's wrong. But at the same time, the community had put two people together to procreate and have children and bring more wealth, not only into their particular community, but also going back to India and bringing wealth and finances and information back to their homeland. So there's a big thing, especially in African traditions. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of the same way as where let's say a Nigerian man would come study in the States and then stay in the States. Maybe his wife would be as soon as he graduates, his wife would come over here, or so, just as a situation. The wife would come over here. They would make their empire here, and then make sure the money that they're making is going back into the village and being recycled through that give and take method. So that having a good eldership, and I want to say once again, using the word as I defined them earlier, having a good eldership to guide the young adults to mate properly and grow the community in a way is important too. So, you know, I'm with the concept of arranged marriages to the point where it's like, okay, I see this woman. Is this woman good for me? Speaking to the elders, and the elders say yes or no. Where it's just like, this woman, this man is going to get married, and that's it. That's a little bit different for me. That's just my opinion. So, but I believe that there should be like a check and balances with good elders that would be that has established themselves as elders and good elders in the community that can sit there and give you good advice on mating practices and family growth.
So, Brother Jeremiah, you want to jump in, or you?
Yeah, man. Yeah. All this is beautiful, bro. The sex aspect, you know, just to respond to you on that, I've had 2 jobs before, right? Where I was the only man. I was the only man working there. Just working around all women all day. And honestly, all they talked about was sex. Like I could never think about sex. Like it just seemed like that was it. So as far as like trying to, sex is gonna be on their mind regardless. That's just how I feel. You know, women are sexual. So it's got to be up to us to, as Brother Charles said, provide that higher direction and guidance for the family, because you know the sex is going to be an extension. But as far as on the arranged marriage, yes, absolutely, I'm with it, 100%. Yes, you have to have. You can't make it nowhere by yourself. You got to have a family, and you know, elders are elders for a reason. And just because you're old, that don't make you an elder. You know, that's just your age. That's just your age. But really, how old are you? You know, because I've seen 60-year-old men and 60-year-old adults, well, 60-year-olds who are really children, and I've seen 12-year-olds who are really men and women. How they carry themselves, conduct themselves, make decisions, just the things they say and do. So, yes, there's definitely a need for order. There's definitely a need for law. And there's definitely a need for enforcement of it. You know? So we got to build, protect, and fortify. And you can't do that without sexing, mating, and matching. You know? Linking up and finding good partners. You know?
So let me ask y'all this. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, I'm good, bro.
So then if one comes to y'all and says, you know what, arranged marriage is not love. You know, love is free and love is flowing and love is what connects us all. And if you try to put some stamps on it or tell me what I can and cannot do, then that's really taking away. That's not love. That's control. But how would you answer that?
Well, you know, love is just a coming together, man. It's a connection. It's only one love. At the end of the day, what's your mission? What is your, you know what I mean? What is your one love? You know, you got to have that. You got to have your center point. A lot of people don't have that. So therefore, they're like a chaff in the wind. But you got to have that mission. Or else where you going to go? What is your one love for? What are you fighting for? What are you living for? What are you breathing for? You know? That's what should spark the coming together. All the rest of that stuff is trash, man. You know, it just comes along with it. But the mission is to build a family. The mission is to win. You know, the mission is to stop getting shot down in the middle of the street. You know.
Well, let me also say this part too, Zach, because the love question. That's first of all, that's a really good question. I really appreciate that. What I would say to that is a couple things. One, you know, when people say like, well, where's love in this? What about love? You know, and what is the cultural paradigm that you're using for that definition of love? Because, you know, like even in the Greek language, there's 5 or 6 different kinds of love. You know, so it's not just one kind of definition, and that's just in one culture. So the first thing is to figure that part out. But the other part of this is you know, like, as I'm sure probably everybody in the chat room knows, love is not the determining factor in marriage, because all of us have loved somebody that we're not married to or that we didn't get married to. So love is not like the determining factor of who you decide to get married to. And I'll say this, as a person that is married, that love is a poor excuse to get married in the first place. That's actually not the reason to get married. And the reason why the arranged marriages work is because they're based on an idea that marriage is about the development of the family. And if we, and here's the thing, man, if we are going to operate from a cultural paradigm that says we are our ancestors reborn, then it is incumbent upon us to be very careful about the choices that even our children and our children's children make in terms of who they are with, because that then is creating the pathway for us to return. And you don't want to return back to a banged up situation because you let your daughter, your grandson, or whatever the case may be, decide that he wanted to be with, the girl that has the biggest butt in the whole neighborhood. Like, that's not the reason for that to happen, because he fell in love with somebody. That's the love part. Like you have to detach the love from the marriage. It's an important part, but that is not the primary drive for marriage. It's a different thing. Love is, like Brother Jeremiah was saying, the love part is what pulls you together. Sometimes it's what keeps you together. But marriage is an institution which is formed based on something else. It's like your love of knowledge will like make you kind of read books and everything, and that's good, and you'll get educated. But there's a difference between being educated and building a school. A school is an institution. That takes something different than just liking learning. There's a whole bunch of other parts that go into that. So I think like if you're gonna embrace that idea of arranged marriages and things like that, you also have to then change your thinking about the placement of things like love into the relationship, and even what the definition of it is to begin with.
Okay. Brother Anwar, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I was actually listening to Charles, and once again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, defining oneself before that whole mating process happens, and knowing who you are and where you got to go within your life before that even helps your mate selection go a lot easier. And what we define love as, and so forth, so on. So, I agree with what Brother Charles said. I really do. Marriage and mating are definitely two different things. And when you get into a marriage, what is the point of the marriage? What is the intent of the marriage? Where are you guys going with the marriage? So those good points, real good points to talk about. Another point that Chief brought up throughout this month was the physical attributes also in mating. How do you like your woman? You know what I'm saying? BBW, slim. How does that play a role inside of your mate selection, and how does that correlate inside of the whole process? So I'll ask that question to us: is like what value does that hold inside of your mating selection?
Say that one more time, sorry.
Like what is
background noise too? So whoever is doing something, if you could just mute out a little bit. Say that one more time, brother. I'm sorry.
All right. So what's the value of the physical attributes of your partner in your mating selection process? Is that clear?
So yeah. So I think a lot can be said about somebody, just their whole physical stature and the way they walk and the way they move. It tells a lot about their personality. It tells a lot about spirituality. And it just tells a lot about how they move throughout the world. So even if, and again, I'm just looking at, how do you stand? How do you carry yourself in a group? Well, I'm looking at social media. I'm looking at like the whole gamut to see what is really you're going to get here. And I don't look at it no different than when you walking through a library. You're going to look at the cover before you open that book up. There's no, as much as, I would like to say, oh, yeah, it's a connection and we just feel something. I'm looking at your legs. I'm looking at your chest. I'm looking at your face. What is this? And then I'm going to open the book up and I'm going to see what this book is about. This book seems a little terrible. I'm going to put that back on the shelf and let me mosey on down and let me see some of the other colors and the other things that are on the shelves. So, and then once you get that, then you start to see, and then again, you open it up and then you see who you're dealing with. I think that's especially so men, and I'm going to say, well, let me say for me, I'm not going to speak for y'all brothers, y'all soul brothers on here. I say, men will work from I work from the outside in, whereas I would see women working from the inside out. which is why then now one would get into a relationship, and why I say sex is very dangerous is because then all of a sudden women think if they can put that snap on a man, then all of a sudden he's going to change into what they think he should be. Whereas men think now all of a sudden that well, this woman is not going to change, and she's just this person that I've now met and frozen, trying to freeze again that pillar of thinking that this person is. And then they start to say one of these things of, well, you know, if you really love me, you would love me for who I am, but you thinking this person is not going to change, and it's the person that you met before. So that's why I say it's very dangerous, and it should be removed to see what you get.
Did you just say that snapper? I think you brought Miami right there. You said snapper, didn't you? Yeah, women put that snapper on them.
Put the snap on them, man.
The snap on them. That's Miami term.
Hey, brother Zach. Hey, you know what? I can see you. My last relationship, the female caused me a lot of trouble, a whole lot of trouble, bro. And I wasn't really attracted to her like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I've talked to you know, I'll get to know people. You know what I'm saying? Like me myself, just personally, once again. Like, I'll get to know a person, you know what I mean? And maybe I should start working more from the root and then going in. You know, if she's gonna cause me trouble anyways, I might as well be attracted to her, right? You know?
Absolutely.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, that's crazy. So, yeah, that's something I'm going to start doing different, man. Like just doing what makes you happy at the end of the day. You know, we came down here upon earth to improve ourselves and to enjoy life. I don't think we came down here to be miserable, even if this is a third dimensional prison. You know, we got to be able to enjoy this thing and have fun on this journey, man. So why not be happy while you're down here? Why not? Why not get what you want? You know, we should have that.
I agree.
You know, royalty should have that. You know, we should be royal at all times, man. You know, not just, you know, sometimes, but all times. Yeah, it should be a lifestyle. So I definitely see your point on that. Definitely.
You know, so hold on, let me just jump in here real quick. So I'm just looking in the chat room here, and I don't know if you guys are checking it out, but Chief is letting everybody know who is and who is not ready to be married. It looks like I got in under the bar, so I got grandfathered in. You guys counted 10 or 15 years ago. And look, here's the thing: is this, right? Like, so one of my mentees, right, who's talking to me. We were talking last week, and he's about to turn 21. And we're talking, and you know, he's been in this relationship, and he's really happy, which I'm very happy for him. And he's a real solid young man. But you know, one of the things that he was talking about was that he had felt like he had reached a point where he was ready to settle down. And it's interesting because, like, you know, at my age now, you know, I've had enough friends that have, you know, gotten married. Some of them have gotten divorced. Some of them have gotten remarried. And, you know, we all talk about the value of waiting longer to get married. You know, and one of the things that's been said on these shows for a long time, and Chief has said it too, is that, you know, like a man doesn't really reach his full potential until, like, you know, around 41, 42. And so that really gives you time to not only, you know, like figure your own self out, but also start to figure out what do you want, you know, what kind of lifestyle you're trying to create for yourself, and then what kind of woman will complement that. And that's a process, you know, that too is an intentional process that you have to go through that sort of supersedes, you know, sort of like the basic criteria of, like, you know, what somebody looks like or things like that. And I know, like, for me, I didn't, you know, like, I don't really worry about, even when I was single, I didn't really worry about, like, whether or not I was going to be with somebody that looked good. Because for me, like, looking good was like a given. So that was going to be there. It's like, you know, like when you ask somebody, like, what kind of thing they want, what do they want in a mate? And they say, well, I want somebody that's smart and, like, honest and good looking. Well, nobody wants somebody that's, like, dumb and dishonest and terrible, right? So those are, like, givens. So then you're looking at, you know, like, what are the real kind of things that you know that you're going to need to have in place if you're talking about a family. And so, like, for me, when I got to the point where I wanted to seriously start dating, then there were 3 criteria that I used. So one is that, you know, the person had to have a belief in a higher power. You know, whether you call that God, whether you call that Olodumare, whether you call that Allah, whatever the case may be, it had to be that you had that in place. Second thing is that the person has to have a sincere love and appreciation for Black people, because I know if you don't have that, me and you're just not going to get along. And the third thing was that the person had to want to be a wife and a mother. And that's a critical thing, because that's the role that I know I needed a woman to play. Now, ironically enough, even in an area like I live in, where there's a lot of women, once my criteria changed, once I really developed the criteria, the pool of people that were available for that shrunk astronomically. And even in my conversations with people, I was able to kind of distill down to those things and just listen to what people talked about. You know, if I was talking to you something about, you know, related to Black people, and your attitude was like, you know, can't we all get along? Okay, I could X you out no matter what you look like. You know, or if you weren't a person that was really interested in being a wife or a mother, then I could X you out. But I think like it's important to develop a criteria. Your criteria is developed for the mating process, you know, and when you're not in that mode in that process, like, you know, Brother Jeremiah was saying, have fun, go out here, do your thing, you know, be safe, but go out here and do your thing. But then when the time comes and you're trying to get married, you know, you're going to have to develop a different criteria. Otherwise, you're gonna land in a real, like, terrible situation. And I've seen people get into situations that are really terrible. And, you know, the time and effort it takes to get out of it is vicious. So that criteria is important. I'm just saying is that criteria changes when it's just criteria for dating and having fun versus criteria for family building.
And that goes into what I was saying about, like, being honest. If you're honestly with somebody to have sex, let that partner know that I'm here to have sex. That's really literally what we want out of this situation is sex. I don't want your mind. I don't want your influence in my day-to-day operations. I just want to have sex. You feel me? And if that's clear between the two parties and they agree to that, go ahead. Stroke your boat. But at the end, if you're actually with somebody with some kind of intent to be married and build a family, build a culture, build a community, build a nation, that intent has to be discussed. And that clarity of focus, that focused energy needs to be discussed. So you guys, we can mate and bring life forth and bring community forth through this process. So, and once again, it's really about being honest. And, you know, me and Nancy had a conversation last night, even with plurality, quantitative relationships, and just how is it needed at this time? You know, just a lot of good questions came out of the whole conversation. Is just, what are you intending to do? What is it that you want to do with the family that you're having? If a man does not have that, his family will not have that. His leadership will not be there. So the man has to initiate that. Now the women are going to come by, and if they agree to the process, they agree to the culture, agree to the how the family holds, the women are going to come behind and manage that. And that's where quantitative relationships or plurality. I'll use the word polygamy slight because of the hexes that's been happening with that. But I say plurality and I say quantitative relationships to define the fact that you're procreating with other men. A man is procreating with other women to bring forth more children to add on to the community in general. Because it's multiple. Another man can have another set of 3 wives, generate 6 kids, and one man can have 3 wives, generate 6 kids, and those 6 kids be married within the community through arranged marriages, and that expansive force gets projected more. Now, the question was, the thing about this is that when is it needed? If our culture, and I'm speaking of Anu, has a small population of people, and we need more children to be able to be ready to live out our Anu culture and project forward. Are the men going to have to find a way to get more children into the mix so we can build our nation, build our community in an expansive, in a quantitative, plural way. So that's really what I, you know, at the end of the day, that's really where I want to focus, is that if I can have children and Zach can have children and Brother Charles can have children, and we're all having this pool of children, that now we can look at Zach's son and look at my daughter and say, Zach's son has an ANU perspective. My daughter has an ANU perspective. They should be able to be married because they match well. Because the elders now that are good, like the good elders, and now looking at them like these children can build something greater into our culture and make our culture evolve to the next state of being. Because it's not about just being stuck in one paradigm and one thing. Our culture is all about expansion and moving forward. The students of ANU, projecting light forward. So I think that's one of the things that we have to put in mind too, you know, because even with the science of mating, with the way, and I don't even want to, I mean, you know what, I'm not going to go there because I don't even want to try to compare westernized society and westernized ideals of marriage in consideration to what we would say hold sacred here at ANU. So, but I
would say go there, because when I look at it, that's why I don't think one should get married. When I saw something before, it said it doesn't take courage to get married; it takes an idiot. And at some point in time, one would have to see that it don't work. Like when you said, and I just heard you when you just said you was apprehensive to say polygamy, Brother Anwar, and I found that to be interesting, because I'm like, okay, why are we talking about marriage? Marriage, if you see the rate that it's going, you see the divorce rate of where it's at, then you start to say, okay, if I was the divorce rate is over like 60, 70%. If somebody told you was to get on a plane and there was a 60 to 70% chance that this plane is going to fail, you wouldn't get on it. So now, why would I enter into something knowing that rate is so high? That's stupid. That would be idiotic. Right. So when we talk about even just being honest with one another, well, then we got to be honest with one another and say, okay, this is what it is. But then how many people really want to hear that? So then that's why people enter into relationships saying, well, because now I want to get something from you, well, then now I feel like I have to lie to you. And then once I finally get it, then now let's be honest with each other and say, oh, I wish I would have known that up front. But when I hear that, well, then now it's not that somebody wasn't being honest with you. You weren't being honest with yourself. And because you're not honest with yourself of where you stand and where you're at, and that's why you're able to get hoodwinked or bamboozled, right? But then you got to you can't blame that on somebody else. You have to look at yourself, and this is why we keep saying that all women should be covered. Period. So just when the guy comes up to you spitting all that game, talking all of this good crap, bring that joker over here. Let me talk to him. Sit him down and let me see. And then if he ain't talking about, nah, that ain't it, and it ain't no, oh, but that ain't love, or oh, this is what I saw, and these Disney channels and all of that stuff that feeds into this garbage, or somebody's going to come sweep you off your feet in this white dress, you got to get that image out your mind. That's tearing people up. Like on a day in and day out basis, just tearing people up. And then we keep trying to live in this fantasy of thinking that things are just going to work out, or things will just be all right if I just love them. And you don't even know what it is. And but I'm going to get married. Why? Can you not have all of those things without being married? I'm just interested in now, what is a marriage, and can you not have it? Can you still have the same thing? Why can't I just say, I'm going to look out for you, you look out for me? But then as soon as you put this label on it, as soon as you put this title on it, now all of a sudden you lock it into something that you have now not really having it, really many people seeing what a healthy union looks like. You lock it into a fantasy of what you feel it should be, and as soon as it doesn't add up to this fantasy, then all of a sudden now you're like, you're not letting me be who I am. You're oppressive. You're not doing the things that are a healthy marriage. Well, where did you get that idea and concept from?
Yes. Yes. Hey, brother Zach, you big mad or little mad, man?
Yes.
And you know, Zach, you raised a really good, important question. And and we've been talking about it, and going into the conversation of marriage and what we define marriage to be here is so polluted by like what we think is marriage through westernized training. You know what I'm saying? And I got to say it like that because westernized training talks about Prince Charming and whatever Disney princess there is, and Prince Charming comes in and they live happy ever after. And that's really not what it is. That's never been the case in any of our ancestral history, indigenous history. It's never been that. And it's on this type of society, as Western society, that promotes that type of thing. That's the reason why the divorce rate is so damn high. You know, I think she quoted it at 79%. You know, and just think about that. That's ridiculous. We can see it's like you said, if it's a 60% chance of getting on that plane, that thing crashing, I'm not getting on the plane. B.A. Baracus, man, I am not getting on the plane, man. You know what I'm saying? Can't put me on the plane. No, it's the same concept with marriage. It's like even with brothers nowadays.
So are we talking about legal marriage? Are we talking about going to the courthouse marriage?
We're talking about Western. That's part of it, but let's just put it in as westernized marriage. What we consider what marriage is here in America, as an American.
Well, in America, if you don't go to the state, you don't have a marriage. That's American law. American law says, yes, if we don't verify your union to each other, you know, you can either give you the common law, which still we authorized it and said what it was, or you got to come to us and bow down in our robes, and then we anoint you with this new ownership papers, you know?
Right.
So are we talking about that, or are we talking about the union of the two?
We are talking about what Anu would define marriage to be. And
we don't use marriage.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
So let me just ask this question though, right? So is the flaw with the institution of marriage, or is the flaw with the people that get involved in it?
Both.
Okay.
I think there's a flaw in the fact that we're not choosing wisely. We weren't wise enough to choose the proper mating, and then there's a flaw that we're actually having to introduce a whole nother aspect into what we would call a marriage, called the government or the state, inside of the union, which a man should be directing. You feel me? So if the man has to bow down to another man, that's like disrespect. It's like bringing Jesus inside the house. Jesus has more priority in the house than the male does, and that's wrong. That's not how a pure bond should be. It should be between a man and a woman, and the creation of the children and the foundation that comes after that. But once again, it's just like I said, it's the institution and how they use this for as slaves. It's a slavery concept. They make these two together so they can project more income and pay more taxes and be more evolved in the society that's definitely not working for us.
Okay, so how does that then relate or not relate to African societies where there are chiefs and the chief has a wife or a bride or kings and queens and all those things? How does that idea of marriage differ from this one that exists here, in your opinion?
I would say
in my opinion,
everybody.
Well, that chief there that to bless their union, you know that he's there to build up that nation. Like who is that chief that we're coming to in America? Like, what flag is that behind him when we're coming to that chief to verify in this institution that union? I say there's something inherently wrong with that. Like that's what it just don't sit well with me, because I know that once I come to him, I'm no longer the authority in that relationship. At any moment, the state is the authority. The union itself is a ward of the state. which literally means it's the state's property. You know, it's when we get to thinking about it on a whole perspective, of how much it affects the family, even on a subconscious and mental thing of coming to your oppressor for him to verify, the very person that brought our Egun in these same courtrooms, I mean, I'm just saying that don't sit well with me. As far as the institutional part of it, I say there's something wrong with that. There has to be something new, a new law brought upon on how the marriage is verified. And I say it's done through the elders, like we were speaking about before, it's the ones that's already charted the path, the ones that's further up ahead on the path that can see more than we can see, because we're babies and we're blind, and we're vulnerable out here, Go to the one that's got some clothing on, the one that can give us a mat to cover up in. I mean, and then we can share that covering with more, Because if you ain't got the youth, you ain't got nothing. Honestly, that's where the revolution pops off from. It ain't gonna pop off from, it comes from the youth.
So
Martin Luther.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I was just saying Martin Luther King was doing the marching, man, but it was the young boys out there making that noise that really, really made the government say, hold up, hold up. We got young brothers out here speaking on podiums with fire. Nah, we got to prevent the rise of the Black Messiah. Nah, that's too much. That's too much. We can't have 22, 23, 24, 25-year-old guerrillas out here. Got people marching, even if, they did that on the spur of the moment type thing. They didn't really plan for it to be that big. So, yeah, that kind of institution, and they knew the law, and they came to bring another law. Okay, yeah, we know what your law is, but from now on, we're going to enforce it like this. But one of the first maxims of law is if you don't know your rights, you have none. You have none. So I said we got to be that law, and I say that's up for the men. I say that's on us.
I got you. We're at 12:30 right now. So for anybody that has any questions on the panel, go ahead and put them in the chat room, and we'll read them off.
Brother Jack, that you wanted to say? Yeah, so yeah, I was gonna when I just heard Brother Omar speaking, it was some things that came into my mind. It was just talking about men bowing down to other men, and in a sense, I think that's one of the problems is that when men say I'm not going to bow down to another man, and they won't humble themselves to say, you know what, hey, I'm all out of game. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and I don't know where I'm supposed to turn. So you have to go. Men are going to learn from one of two ways, either trial and error or from another man who is further along the path. And in order to get ahead now, in order to start moving, so we're not moving in cyclical cycles and keep repeating the same thing, we got to start to reach out to somebody who's further ahead. Now, this is why women and men shouldn't learn together, because now all of a sudden, I think the only issue comes in with that is now when a woman sees that with the other man is, why am I with you then? I might as well go over there and be with him. So now you separate the two, and men and women process things different as well. So now if you have that difference, then now you reach out to it like a person like you. I say, hey man, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm doing. Oh yeah, da-da-da. Give you some, okay, now here we go, because this is how we start to build stronger community. Now, going back to what you said, Brother Charles, I think it was the difference is that I think when we have consorts that one would have, and this is where we even come into hypergamy, which is now women start to choose. This is why women hold the power who you choose. So you better be wise and the person that you pick, because even when you start to look at it, and this might get a little ugly right here, but I mean, is spoils of war. So now who is going to provide the most protection? Because when somebody came in to take over a whole place or recolonize a place, they would kill all the men off, and then they would miscegenate the women. So therefore, now a woman's going to pick who she's going to feel most comfortable with, who's going to protect and provide for that family, because she knows that in a time of war, that somebody's going to come over and she may have to become a concubine to somebody. So in order for that to prevent that, you pick the strongest male, and that's how one starts to procreate. Then you start to have stronger lineages and lines, and your pedigree is stronger just from that act alone. So, and I would say this is and then I think Brother Jeremiah kind of hit that. Does that answer your question, Brother Charles? Or?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just curious about that. I mean, I think that, you know, whether you call it mating or marriage or whatever it is that you're saying, I personally think that the quality of the thing itself is based on the quality of the people. So, you know, like if the people are don't have their stuff together, they'll mess anything up. You know, it's like with religions. Like religions are all, I'm not gonna say all, but for the most part are espousing this idea that people should care for and protect and look out for one another as themselves, right? But the people that follow those religions, those practices, jack them up. And the question is, like, is the system itself, the thing itself, flawed, or are the people that are a part of it flawed? You know, I think, like, you know, like getting back to like the question that you asked a while ago, why should people get married in the first place? You know, a lot of people, I personally think a lot of people actually need the structure that marriage provides, in the best sense of what that is. Like some people are actually capable of practicing and being in a system of plurality. But I'll tell you that my personal feeling is that's not for everybody either. Some people actually can't handle that. Some people actually can't handle being with one woman. I remember, and I've seen the pictures with Mawali Mubaruti up here. I remember being in one of his lectures, and you know, like him saying that, you know, it's hard enough sometimes just dealing with one woman. And you know, he's been married to his wife, you know, for forever, or not. I don't know the exact length of time, but it's been quite some time. But I think, like, as a man, you got to also know what you actually can and can't handle, and what you actually can and can't deal with. Everybody's not built to manage and provide covering for 3, 4, 5 women, regardless of what you think. Every man is not to provide covering for one woman effectively. Right. And they shouldn't even be involved in that. So I mean, like, I think like there's a quality of the person in the situation that I would say is paramount even to that situation itself.
That's funny that you bring that up, because that's one of the conversations I had yesterday. Is that I was telling Nancy once again. I said, I'm not even sure how I'd be able to handle 2 women. I've never done that in my life. You feel me? Like having a thought and projection to have 3 wives. How could I have that if I haven't even experienced that one time yet? How would that work? You feel me? So you have to be honest with yourself. Literally, at that point, it's like, are you able to handle 2 women? How are you able to handle 1 woman first? Are you able to handle the second one inside of that? You feel me? How is the structure going to be? You know, you gotta be real clear and real honest with yourself about that situation. So it's nothing meant for the weak. When you sit, it's not weak when you just sit there and say, I don't know if I can handle that. That's more of a strong posture saying that, okay, look, this is what I can handle, this is what I can do, this is how I'm going to be able to grow the best way. You know what I'm saying? So, and once again, some of the society parameters, Western societal parameters, when it comes down to men and doing the things that we do sometimes where we're not being honest in a relationship, and we're going outside the relationship, and we're having side chicks all over the place, and we have a wife at home, and the wife pretty much knows he got side chicks, but she's sitting there like cool with it, really, well, not even cool with it, just like holding that process in while he sneaks around and is not being honest with his wife, saying I got a side chick. You know what I'm saying? So it's those things that throws the relationship off. Now, if the wife is cool with the side chick, then that's the conversation that needs to be had. At least you need to have that conversation. You need to say, look, I need this. This is something I want inside of my umbrella. You know what I'm saying? And if she agrees to it, if she sees the light in it,
see, and even when I hear you, though, I think what comes to my mind, even when somebody is dealing in plurality, that and again, it goes back again to the beginning, that it's not about sex. If somebody goes off to work, I often look at this and they come back from work and you see children are gone all day, and and then they come back and they have tons of energy, but yet a grown adult is sitting at a desk, behind a desk all day, and they come back and they have no energy. Well, if just by the man as being at the head, it's not about running around and humping and trying to, I just want to have multiple women to have sex with. If the man is at the head doing what he's supposed to do, he's mentally drained. Like you making sure, again, once you have it and everybody is there to serve, but if he is the boss, he's going to become the biggest servant. So he's going to make sure that everybody's needs are taken care of. And that doesn't mean that, okay, I just want to sleep with you, and you. That means that we're really talking about empire building and nation building, and then this is a part of it. But then this ain't we just coming together to have sex. We coming together to do something. And when somebody is at the head, the king, even when we look at the chess pieces, that king got to make the decisions. What are we doing? Where are we going? Boom. And everybody's looking to him, and that takes work. That takes a lot of work, and if you're not ready to take on that, okay. But see, people, I think when they don't enter into it, they only coming from my own self. Like, okay, well, you just want to have a community phallus. That's the only thing that you want to have. You just want to sleep. And see, when somebody is that simple-minded, then you got to either getting some damaged goods there, or you just or you don't waste your time with it. But the easiest way for it to work is from what I found. Is when women enter into a relationship, you enter into it knowing that this is the person that you chose, and this is the culture that he's going to implement. You be covered under that umbrella. And the only way that fishes don't get caught is they close their mouths. So now this is what we're doing, and this is where we're moving. And if you don't like it, get up underneath somebody else's umbrella. But this is not something that you go back and forth with somebody.
And working off those definitions I said earlier about good and bad. When good men have made children, he normally makes good children. When bad men have children, he normally makes bad children. Do we really want to marry off our good children with bad children? Are we really in a place where we sit there and say we need to invest our time to making good children help bad children elevate? Is that really the space that we're in now? You know what I'm saying? It's just going off the definitions that I gave earlier between those words good and bad. So that's another question. You feel me? Because truthfully, honestly, me personally, like she said earlier, she said in the chat room, I'm gonna read this back real quick. But me personally, I would rather have my sons marry good women. You know what I'm saying? This is what he said to Avery Holmes. I wouldn't let my daughter marry us into a family of niggers, Negroes, losers. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Whichever one. I don't care how her beloved has built himself up, but he does not want to add another family of what I coin right now as bad families. You feel me? If it's like, if my family doesn't participate in Christmas or any of these secular holidays, I don't want to have a joint family that participates in that, because then there's really there's a cultural block. There's a line, there's an iron wall that stops us when we get to a point where we're talking about real spirituality and enlightenment and even leaving this planet when we die, or however we might leave this planet. That block would come up inside of that family lineage. And that Chief makes a good point on that. You know what I'm saying? The real point is that I would rather marry my sons off to good women. That's the side of our culture. That's the side of the growth that's where I'm expanding to. I wouldn't want my son to go get a thought. You know what I'm saying? Just because the snap are good. But that's a whole nother story.
Right. Brother Jeremiah, you want to jump in?
Sure, brother, sure. I feel what you were speaking about, because I have multiple women and I need multiple women, because the things that I'm doing, it's not possible for me to be all these many different places at once. The things I'm doing, I need multiple hands. I need more producers. I need fertile ground. I don't need nobody coming to me with their hands out. Oh, what are you gonna do for me? Nothing. Get on. Like, what do you bring? You know what I'm saying? What are you bringing to the family? You know, do I have to train you on everything? That's too draining. I don't have time for that. Like, I'm building something here. You know, I'm building something. So either she can get under that umbrella there, or she can't. And, you know, I shouldn't have to be always, I'm out there, you know, fighting the world and worried about her petty emotions. You know, because, you know, her hormones are off, or whatever it is, man. You know, I don't have time for that trash.
Yeah, or she hasn't even grown past those emotional issues that she's had. You know, so that's a good point. That's a very strong point. That, you know, if the man is supposed to lead the house with culture and preservance of that culture and provisions for that culture, if the woman does not agree with that culture, she's not supposed to be in that house. She's not supposed to be under that umbrella. Just dead on. Like, look, if you're bringing nothing more than stress and anxiety into a sacred place, I'm sorry, you got to go. Get that out of here. You know what I'm saying? Look at honey hockey sticks.
Right. You just got to stand up and be strong enough to do that. You know what I mean? Be man enough to, you know, take a stand. Because if you don't take a stand, you're not a man no ways. I mean, you know, what are you standing for? Nothing? You're good. You fall for anything. You know, you're a damn dummy. So
I got a quick question for all three of you brothers. Is that, you know, I know that going through the teachings that Chief has laid out, you know, obviously it has an impact on how you look at things like mating. I'm curious how your spiritual practices inform or influence or impact your mating decisions.
Okay. So with me, I grew up with a Christian background. So, and I never really, again, understood why I was doing what I was doing. I just started doing it just out of sheer habit of what everybody else was doing. And I thought that this was the you know, you only had, it's not multiple gods, there's one God. And there's only one person that you go to, and this is it. And then you start to see, you know, that this is kind of the ideology that you have taken, that I was taking on of the colonizers who gave it to you. So, but then this is what I'm just going to give to you, but I'm going to do something totally different because I already know that this thing, that it really doesn't work. And I started looking at it even in the sense of when we're talking about, you know, this whole, you know, one, and you get into it and you have monogamy, but then you start to look at even in the earlier days when they was on plantations and what have you, that this quote unquote monogamy that they were supposedly living, they still had this other, well, raping other women on the side. But yet you're going to give it to somebody else, and then you keep trying to fit a circle through a square peg and wondering why it's not working. So when I started to get a true understanding of even the spirituality, breaking down the things of the why and the what is this, and do basically a reverse engineering of, okay, this is what it is. Well, hold up, let me break this down to see what it actually is here. And that was the whole thing of in this book, Grasping the Root of Divine. Once you get the root of it, then you can start to see things that actually can work and things that have harmony and balance and things that, hold up, somebody just made something up and gave it to you. How do you have a Trinity and you remove a woman? And then now you just call her a Holy Spirit. Hold on. Whoa, what is this? What then now let me come over here though. Oh, okay, I see what this is. These things are Alicia's right. And this is, oh, okay, there's plurality in this right here. And this, why is that? And why do you come to this? And it's all about building stronger units, stronger family, because everything is basically family based. Oh, I see. So now we have the law of correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. So now I'm supposed to mirror that. Oh, okay. So then that's how it has helped shape and form and transform my life. In a sense, now that I start to, now in a world where everything seems so rocky, everything seems so shaky, I now have an anchor so that when I start to set sail, even if that time when that water starts to get choppy, I'm not thrown up against the rocks of the harsh reality of what everybody else is living now. I implement my own culture so that therefore when that winds and that the hard times end, I'm still able to move on and move forward, build a stronger and healthy community, and start to even impregnate in a culture in one's mind that will last throughout the end of time.
There it is.
It's 12. We got about 15 minutes. Just wanted to put it out there real quick. Any questions for the panel? Put it in the chat room. And I just wanted to do a correction on the immigrant slip. It's sugar honey iced tea. It's not sugar honey hockey stick. Yeah, hockey stick. It's immigrant slip. It's immigrant slip. Sorry, we mess up cliches, man. We mess up cliches. That's what we do. But you know, one of the other things that I seen, I felt during this month's topic was that it's supposed to be, you're supposed to have fun. You're supposed to be happy with it. You know, throughout all of Chief's teachings, he was cutting jokes that was just hilarious. And that kind of shows an example on how we should have a joy inside of mating, inside of our relationships. It's that Oshun energy. You know, Oshun's always giggling. You know what I'm saying? So I think that has a major part to do with how we choose our mate and how we create the environment for our children to be in. There's got to be an excitement. There's got to be a love. Well, I don't want to use the word love, but there's got to be a happiness that's being built inside of your home, inside of your environment. That happiness got to be there, and that will help the whole process move forward. So, you know, it's a serious topic that we've been talking about, mating. But at the same time, there's got to be fun inside of it. There's got to be that Oshun vibration inside of it, that connection.
Yeah, and you know, when I just heard you saying that, when you start to really, again, know who and what you are, and I think you said that earlier, man, everything for me starts to be, you enjoy everything. Like every little bit of the process, you enjoy when people first start on their process. You enjoy with the process of where you're at now. I enjoy the challenges that I see even coming ahead. I'm like, man, I know I'm getting stronger to a place where, and that's why I send my utmost respect to Chief, because he has, and I'm talking about freely just giving it, so that therefore when I step out into the world and I apply it, it's almost like, oh yeah, I seen it. Or it's like, oh yeah, I see it. Like in the Matrix, when you see Neo and he starts to see the numbers and the codes, and then all of a sudden things start to slow down for you. That's when you really dive deep into this teaching, when you really start to dissect it and then apply it, you start to see numbers. You start to see codes when you step out into the world and you're like, oh, okay, I see the problem here. Or when somebody starts to speak and say, oh yeah, my relationship, and then you can hear, oh, I see where the problem is. You're the problem. Oh, I see where that problem lies. This is it. And then you start to, and when you start to build a stronger person in yourself, you naturally start to help other people out along the way. And it's a beautiful thing. And then once you start to move and build stronger people, you build stronger communities then start to, now you have that strong lineage and line that one can start to build on, which goes back to those shows on authority and power. Because the only reason that one would lean up against something else is because it brings some order. So once we start to bring some order back in here, which Brother Jeremiah said, even with the men starting to build stronger men, then we can start that now, get back to protecting and cultivating our women. And then once we start to do that, man, it's just an enjoyable thing to do. And knowing of the challenges that one faces, to me, is I enjoy that. I enjoy having conversations with you all. I enjoy even having conversations with women. I enjoy every little bit about it because I know I came down here. And once you start to know your purpose and your reasoning, it starts to become an enjoyment. And that doesn't mean that there's some days like, I ain't feeling it today. I need to take a break today, because I certainly have some of those days. But man, it just becomes a beautiful thing.
Chief just posed the question to the panel in the chat. Is it more advisable to marry an alien culture, interracial, or into a dysfunctional family of your own group? And I'll read that again. Is it more advisable to marry into an alien culture, interracial, or into a dysfunctional family of your own group? As a man, and I'm gonna say this straight up. I'm not going into something that's dysfunctional, because I'm not gonna be part of that. I'm not gonna bring my children into the picture of being in part of something that's dysfunctional. You know what I'm saying? If an alien culture, and just using that word as alien culture, that has functionality into it, and I am accepted inside of that alien culture. Because once again, goes back to what he said in one of the shows, where how do you know that you'll be accepted into that culture in the first place? Because you're going to be bringing your dysfunction inside of that culture. So if I was accepted into an alien culture that was functionable, and I was able to create something that I have my culture is being presented inside and able to manifest that would be the way for me to go. You feel me? I would not put myself in a place that's going to be dysfunctional, because it's only going to make my travels and my intent even harder. There's going to be metal walls that get thrown up. There's going to be all types of stuff. Like I said, with a Christian family, there's going to be a wall when it comes down to ascension, because ascension is going to be blocked at a certain vibrational rate of a Christian family than it would be at a natural indigenous mind in a culture that's dealing with how nature works. So there's blocks. I would rather be in an alien culture, honestly.
So okay. if I go ahead, Brother Jim, I'm sorry.
Nah, I just said
Okay. But okay. Well, when I look at it, and I'm if I understand the question, and maybe I should have clarified when I say our women. My woman is whoever I choose, and it's not just one that how can I put this? Because I see a lot of people say you got to be with a black woman. I don't agree with that. I'm gonna look at it and say, you know what? I'm going with whoever gives me the least resistance. Because I know what my purpose is, and I know where I'm going. And I'm not going to just take on somebody because somebody says that that's who I'm supposed to be with. Like you're supposed to be with this person, and you're supposed to be with. I'm going with whoever does it, who is more cooperative, and who is going to stay underneath that umbrella. Well, I'm not going to keep every day I come home, and I got to understand. Well, this is why you should be under it. This is why we're doing this. Look, if you don't get it, then go find somebody else. I'm not dealing with it. I got other things that I got to worry about, and I got other things that I got to take care of, than to try to convince somebody to stay underneath there. And if they look like me, great. If they don't, then so be it. I'm not worried about that. I know what I came down here to do. And either you're going to get with it or you're just going to get ran over. Is the way I look at it.
So I get, first, that's a great question. Like, so I'm just going to kind of share my thought on like the breakdown of it. So the dysfunctional family part, I mean, as far as it relates to the people in your racial group, honestly, I don't know a functional family to begin with. So, I mean, I think all of our families are dysfunctional in some way. I mean, there's not a black family without, the drug dealers, drug users, pimps, somebody that, molested somebody and everybody knows it, but they just keep the person away from the kids, away from that person. I mean, like we just see kind of so much of that. I mean, I don't know that. I think it's hard to find a generational, fully functioning black family within the context of America to begin with. So that, I think that's kind of like a given. The alien culture part, there's just no chance. For me personally, there's just no chance that I'm going to marry into that. So for me, I'm going to take my chances with the person in my own racial group. Because I think similar to the point that Zach is making, if you're on your grind like that, and if she's following properly, then you have a chance to direct and build and move something in a different direction. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing I can do with somebody from the alien culture, especially if it's an alien culture which is adversarial to mine. Then there's nothing, and I'm going to join and mate with this person. No, that wouldn't work for me. That wouldn't work for the people that I value and that are part of my community. That just there's no chance on that. So, I mean, I look at it like it's not really a hard decision, because I'm taking the dysfunctional personal family all day, racial family all day, every day, because I feel like I can direct that. The other thing, there's nothing I can do with that.
Mm-hmm.
We're almost at. Oh, go ahead, George.
I'm gonna answer the question. I'm going to say, if I have two fine women side by side, The one on my right is of melanin, has melanated, and she's real dysfunctional. And I have one over here to my left that has, you know, real fair skin, a turban on her head. You know, that would be an alien culture. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take the left because her culture has already put something deep into her to follow the man. You know what I mean? To follow good leadership. It has order to it. If I get that, I can work with that, bro. Now that dysfunctional stuff, I mean, we got to live and learn, man. And like Brother Zach say, we got to be that king on that chessboard and have a strategy and good tactics to implement them.
Mm.
That's all I'm saying on that.
Mm. That's a real good point. We are at the 1 o'clock. We're almost at 1 o'clock right now. Chief posed another question. How has someone like Harry Belafonte seen in that light? Okay, that must have went from something else earlier, but considering how he's done he's done much for the Melanoid community.
Right. Because if I'm mistaken, he didn't really deal with black women. All his women were white, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I mean, like he's yeah. I mean, yeah. So I mean, I'm sorry, brother. Don't let me cut you off. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
I was asking because I was just wanted to make sure that I just wanted to make sure about that. Harry Belafonte, he had a bunch of white girls around him. He didn't really deal with no sisters, and I think the white women he had, you know, I think he just did him. You know, he was Harry. You know, they knew what he was about. They knew what his mission was, and he didn't have to prove that to nobody because it showed in his walk and his actions. You know, he didn't. You know, the walk talked. You know, and he talked with the walk, so he could do whatever Harry wanted to do. You know, he's Harry. Yes, he's earned that right. You know, to be there. You know.
Now I'm just going off some of the lecture and conversation. I think I remember on this topic was that Harry Belafonte has a white wife. She just told me that, and I think what I remember hearing on this discussion is that during that process, that white wife was able to give him certain resources that he wouldn't have had with a melanoid woman or a woman of his own culture. You know, what my question, and I'll just raise the question, is how beneficial is that for a man that goes into an alien culture for him to expand and do his movements? Because with the statement, I'll just go with the statement, is that would Harry Belafonte be who he was if he was with a black woman instead of him being with a white woman?
So before I go though, I know Brother Charles, you gotta
I gotta jump up. I mean, I think there's a couple. I mean, like these are like, dang, these are some good questions. I mean, you know, I'll just say that, you know, like with the Harry Belafonte perspective, he has done a lot for black people. You know, obviously he was, you know, I just know, like, as an example, you know, he would throw concerts back in the day to raise money for like SNCC, you know, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. You know, he's been a staunch advocate of, you know, Haiti having its debt removed, that France holds against Haiti, which cripples the economy of the country. So, yes, he has been like he's been very instrumental in those ways. You know, I'm not one that's going to slap a label on him and try to label him as a sellout or anything like that. I would just say that, you know, and it's something that Brother Anwar just kind of said, is that, you know, there's a give and take for all those things. So it's like, yes, maybe through the process of choosing to marry a woman who was not, you know, black, you know, maybe that did provide him with other resources and other entry points than he would have had. And that allows him to do some good, but there's an opportunity cost for that as well. You know, like even in our spirituality, you know, there's the heaven and the hell to all those things, you know, to all those Orisha. And so we make these decisions, and there's going to be a cost to it. you know, I think like, you know, for him, and even in the first question that Chief asked, I mean, if you choose to marry somebody from a dysfunctional family, depending on how dysfunctional that family can be, that's going to be a real problem for you. You know, there's going to be some benefits and some detriments. And the same goes for the alien culture part. But, you know, the totality of what we as men do or what we as people do, you know, there's a lot that factors into that. I don't know if there's any one particular singular act that sways that from such, you know, this person was a good person or a bad person. You know, I would just say that with Harry Belafonte, he's done some great things for the Black community. I would have preferred to see him with a Black woman, but, you know, that's the decision he made. That's the decision he made, and that's the decision that he lives with. And, you know, I do, as Brother Zach said, I do need to jump off right here. But it is always a pleasure on the ride with you brothers. In the chat room, too, thank you for the feedback and the energy. You know, we probably could have done 2 months on this one topic. As it is. And also, before I jump off, just want to, you know, with it, you know, talking about the ancestors, just give a quick shout out to the spirit of our ancestor, Big Gregory, who transitioned this month, who I had a chance to meet really briefly and just was, you know, a solid brother, and also, I think, very much an embodiment of an Eshu type character. So shout out to that brother as well, and support to his family. But peace, brothers, and chat room, and I'll have a great day on purpose. Peace.
All right, peace, Brother Charles. All right, so what I would just say is, before I used to be in the sense of, yeah, man, you got to stay with your own community and do your. As I've come to look at it and see and wanting to help, I guess the thing that one starts to look at now and say is, well, what is the best possible way to help? And sometimes the best way not to help is not to be in what you're trying to help out. And again, that goes back to what is going to offer me the path of least resistance. So am I going to get into something dysfunctional? And even I'm saying people are going to say like, oh, how dysfunctional? Look, man, either you following or you're not. That's all it's going to come down to. Your mate is not required to be your therapist. That's something you have to work out. And if you don't want to do it and you don't want to listen, well, you can get gone. I mean, that's just the way I look at it. I don't have time to keep going back and dealing with your issue. You go, oh, but you don't understand. I'm dealing with a lot of trauma and dealing with it 4, 5, 6, 7 times. The best way that I can help somebody is I have to remove myself from that and grow to higher levels so that therefore I can actually give something of nutritional value. And even when senses of people talking about racism and, you know, their fear of genetic annihilation, well, then why are you so concerned about a black man being with a white woman knowing that you're going to get black children? I don't understand what the deal is, and what are you crying about? I mean, everybody just is. Look, if you're going to choose somebody who's going to actually stay under the umbrella and who's not going to give you so much slack, and people, oh, I'll push you, I'll make you greater and all of that. If you changing him into what you feel like he should be, he probably wasn't a man when you picked him in the first place. So now what are we really talking about? I mean, all of this stuff, it sounds good and it feels good when you get a guy come on, yeah, you should stay with your own people and I ain't dealing with nobody. Man, stop. All right? That's nothing but somebody just pandering to you, trying to tell you what you want to hear, gassing you up, saying that, yeah, we all in this struggle together. Well, wouldn't the wisest thing to do is get the hell out of the struggle so you can actually help somebody and leave them a rope and say, get out too? That doesn't mean that you can't incorporate them and get them back into what you're doing. But at the same time, you got to make the smartest decisions. And if the smartest decisions is not doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Now, if you would have asked me a few years ago, then I'm like, yeah, man, you got to be, that ain't, you got a white woman or you got this or you got, man, so what? So what? Even if you look at in times of war, somebody will go in and take over a community. That means that you done conquered and won the war if you got somebody else's woman on your arm.
Right.
So
now, with that, I wanted to raise this statement: is that a man's aspect of expansion deals with conquering other men and being greater than other men. So, wouldn't it be logical to put into the picture where a man's resources come from the women, right? So, if that is the statement, the man's point of taking in a white woman, taking in a Spanish woman, taking in a black woman, wouldn't that be a natural concept for a man expanding? You know what I'm saying? Isn't that something serious that we got to think about? Is that men conquer women to make sure that they're put inside of an umbrella to cover them and to expand inside of that umbrella? Is that a proper statement? Am I wrong for saying that? Am I right for saying that?
You're saying that? Say that one more time. I'm a bit confused.
Okay. I'll just say it like this. A man's duty is to conquer the women of his enemies and take his women and expand his culture and his intent forward. Whether it's a white woman, whether it's a Spanish woman, whatever they call the races. You know what I'm saying? It is, I'm just making that statement. It is one of the things that men must do.
Well, men are going to go out and take over. I think I hear what you're saying. So men are going to go out and take over. They're going to go over and expand it. And again, that's why even when we had that conversation last month, when we talk about men and territory, when you go over and you conquer something, you look after it, you protect it. Again, so now, and I think that even goes back to one of the shows when I think they were talking about the grapefruit guru gangster. They was just talking about some of the different things that women enter into jobs and trying to do the same thing men do, and the men are only power has to be taken. You're not going to give somebody power. You can't petition for power. You can't march in the street for power. You got to take it. And when you take it, then you claim it. And this is mine, this is my area, and this is what I do. And this is why, again, it goes back to what I said, hypergamy. Women are going to choose based on who they feel most protected and whatever umbrella that I'm going to come underneath, then that's what the decision that they're going to make. And if I don't feel protected and provided for underneath this umbrella, well, then there ain't nothing. I mean, then they're going to choose somebody else. But when we talking about in the senses of war, yeah, well, and you ain't got no choice. You coming along. I mean, and you can see that all throughout history. So this is what I'm saying. When we got to start having some real and honest conversations with one another, but since we're not, and people just keep pandering, and this is why I've heard you say this a million times, 100%. Women are the world's biggest suckers. You get these fake, sorry behind teachers who get up here and try to tell you, oh, the problem is you started listening to this men. Or the problem is, they ain't really dealing with you. Well, if you listen to the men, then why should they be listening to you in the first place then? Why are you even up here talking? You probably should have started that whole conversation off saying, don't listen to me because I'm a man. Just do your own thing. But then you don't break this stuff down and say, you don't hear this garbage? You don't see this person standing in front of you is full of garbage. Like, and it upsets me to the ninth degree. Like, come on, man. Like, stop it.
Sugar, honey, iced tea. Gotcha.
I mean, and then nobody, and this is what I'm saying, but then it just keeps the same cycle over and over again. And as soon as you start to say, and as soon as somebody steps up and starts to have real conversations, then they draw back on this, sorry behind teacher, sorry behind person who grabbed the mic and just said, oh, yeah, well, see, that's a real man. He's the one that would look out for his own. He's the one that's going to do this. Man, stop it. All right? Miss me with all of that. And that goes back even to that love aspect, that love with that watery aspect. That love is going to be transforming. But so many people want to enter into a relationship and don't want to transform. They don't want to move, and they want to be stuck into that salt and that pillar. Well, then that's fine. Stay your ass stuck. I don't care. Either you're coming or you're not. I don't care. And if you're not coming, then I'm going to find somebody who offers me the least resistance. That's it. And if we're going to be real, then let's be real about it.
Let me read this statement. L. Joyce 17 stated, I am single as well. Recently, these teachings caused me to question how I have positioned myself to choose a mate, partner, being 23. I was surrounded by young, underdeveloped males, as well as my own ignorance and emotional habits. I realized why I am drawn, why I need safety, security, and stability now. Now, that's important, too. And the Chief spoke on this, is where a younger woman gets under the covering of an older man because he has that security, safety, and stability. And finding one that's a man that has been gone through his emotional turmoils, has matured past them, and has a direction. And for Joy 17, that whole concept of finding a man that will that will put you under that umbrella and you follow into that culture that the man is developing is important. So that's a good statement for Joyce, and hopefully that works out for you. Just look for that. And my advice would be just to make sure you look for that man that has that stability, has that security, has that safety, that you can fall under his umbrella, and then you participate under his umbrella. Don't bring a dysfunctional habit that's going to make that umbrella become distorted. Because 9 out of 10 times, the man that has that is not going to allow you under that in the first place. So just make sure that you look at all the aspects of it. Make sure that you know yourself and know what situation you're getting into, know what he's moving towards, and feel that you're going to be part of that movement, that expansive movement.
You know, and I just seen, and maybe I see this, I don't know, GH in the chat room, it said heal together or die apart. And I guess when I see that, man, I'm looking at if somebody's drowning in water and you can't swim, would it be smart to jump in and save them? Can you save them? I just don't think that would be a wise thing to do, though it sounds very admirable. And it sounds like, yeah, okay, but see, though, that's the thing. It's not going to work. So at some point in time, the best way to help that person is to get yourself out and then leave a rope for them to figure it out. Nobody has ever drowned because they fell in water. They drown because they stay there. They choose to stay there. So that's a choice. So if you're making a choice to stay there, I'm not going to make a choice to jump in with you. That's stupid. Right.
I'd like to say you got to have wise mind to know what to do at the present moment. Like Brother Zach is saying, you know, you have to know what to do in that situation that you're in. Like, what is the situation that we're in today, and how should we be moving towards a solution to the dysfunction? Also, we're here to find solutions to it, not to keep, you know, that's already a given, man. Like, you know, I'm not gonna jump in, me myself, because I have wisdom to know. Hey, look, hey, listen, man, there's casualties in war, man. Sorry. There's casualties in war.
Once again,
so yeah.
Once again, it goes back to that statement: is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And if you know, like I said in a previous show, is that if the water's right in front of you and you don't take the water, I'm gonna leave you right there. I'm gonna move on from that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not using your intelligence. When you know that you're dying of thirst and there's a bucket of water in front of you, you refuse to drink out of that bucket of water, even when someone actually step back and steers you towards the water bucket. So we can't have that, and I can't have that personally under my umbrella. You know what I'm saying? If I say, look, go do this, go do that, because if you're not doing that, you can't be under this umbrella.
Right, and even when I hear that analogy, look here, man. When you say lead a horse to water, if you with me, you're gonna follow. Like that's a follow and listen. That's it. Like you got to convince the horse or tell them to come over, man. I don't got time for that. I don't have time for it. So again, that just goes back and then find somebody else. We can all make this simple on each other now. Some people just feel like I got to be a part of the fight and a part of the cause. Or you can start to look at it and say, you know what? Again, this goes back to now, what is the best way to help? That's really what it comes down to. What is the best possible way that you can actually help somebody out? And then once you start to look at it from that standpoint, then that's when you start to make different calls and move throughout the world differently. This is how it boils down to me.
Nice. Right. So we're at 1:15. Any other questions for the panel?
Well, if not, man. No, it's not. You know, we'll go ahead and close it down, man. It's always.
Hold on. No, I got something to say.
Hold on.
No, it's just
hold up. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I have to express and show my appreciation because this information, I didn't get this information growing up, like in my teen years at all. So this is stuff like I'm hearing from the elders. You know, Chief been breaking down a lot of the the manhood information that I wish I had in my teens. You know, I'm getting it now, but this is like getting me in gear for, I guess, because I know where my life is headed. But it's getting me in gear for a lot, and I can actually see how it's affecting and how it's changing things. It's strange. It's in a good way, but yeah, like this is the stuff y'all passing down to me. Like I can pass down to my youth and everyone else that I work with and all that kind of stuff. So, and then like Brother Zach was saying, like once you step into step into it and you just surrender to it, stuff just gets easy. I almost said shit. But it just gets easier. Everything gets easier. It just makes sense. Like I know for me, because my background growing up in that, like I had an imbalanced upbringing. So, my understanding of male and female was off. And I'm still undoing a lot of stuff. But like once you step into like just your gender assignment, it just makes so much sense. And you're like, all right, like I don't have to do too much fighting against a bunch of some other culture's way of raising even my own family or raising whomever and however, so this was some good stuff. And I appreciate it. I appreciate Chief. Listen, everyone, every time y'all have these sections at the end of the month, someone's listening. I'm definitely listening. And, and I had to throw my 2 cents in there because I'm in the woods hype. Like, this is some good ass shit.
So, there you go. Sugar Honey Iced Tea.
I'm sorry. I had to share that. But thank you. And I appreciate it.
Hey, Justin, man. Like, one thing I'll say is that, how old are you right now?
29.
29. So think about it, brother. You have now been able to gain information from elder men and men that have already gone through things that you haven't even experienced yet, like having children yet. So think about the trade-off. The trade-off is that. Think about how strong you're going to be by the time you turn 35 and 40. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So you're a good example, and I can see you have it by you taking in the information, and actually utilizing it and working it. You'll be away from the battles that we went through. You'll see the battles that we went through and say, okay, I can't have that under my umbrella because my elders have told me this. I've learned this from elders. I don't have to deal with that anymore. I can work on expansion. I can work on becoming the greatest version of myself in my family now because I know how to deal with it because my elders have taught me. You know what I'm saying? So it's a beautiful sight, brother. It's a beautiful sight. Beautiful. Sugar Honey Iced Tea.
Appreciative.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah, so
did Justin receive a link, Brother Anwar?
No, we'll get that. We'll get that situated. I'm pretty sure he did. But
all right, so we've come to the end of the show, man. We appreciate everybody for joining in the chat room. Did you guys have any final words before we part ways today?
Sugar Honey Iced Tea.
Sugar Honey Iced Tea. Yeah, man. Peace and power.
Peace and power. No.
And just to reiterate again what Brother Justin had said, man, it was just you start to see this is not just a ministry. This is actually a bloodline. And when you start to really break it down of the science behind the whole thing, you start to now this creates your lineage and your line of moving forward. This is kind of what he was just talking about. So again, just like Brother Justin, man, I am grateful. I'm honored to be in this space with everybody, man, and just keep building yourselves, keep diving into the information, and we're building stronger communities, one person at a time.
And just to back up Brother Zach on it, celebrate, man. And he had to remind me just recently, too, on the phone, celebrate it. Celebrate every moment of it, brother. Celebrate.
There you go. And as Chief just said, get your character up.
Yep.
Ewa Ray Ray, man. Get it together. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
All right. Well, until next time, man. Chief will be back next Sunday with a new topic, a new day, a new nation. We out.
Chill.
Peace.
Peace.
One.
Peace.